welcome guys. Part 3, Journey of a Liferay Developer. And this one, okay, wait, actually let's do a poll. Who went to part 1 in 2018? Anyone go to part 2? 2019? Wow. Wow, that's a little blow to my ego. Thanks, guys. Okay, well, it's okay. We got a good one for part 3, and we're going to do a recap. So we'll pick up the speed. So part 3, we're looking at powering up with Liferay DXP 7.4 originally, but we've done a little bit a naming change. So now we're going to go with 2024 Q4.6. It's a little bit harder to say, but let's go with it. I want to start with a quote. I've reached that stage in my life where I like quotes. And I thought this quote was really good specifically for this talk, which says, "Blessed are the curious, for they shall have adventures." Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I have had many adventures with Liferay. Not all of them have been good, but most of them have been really good. All right, this is what today's adventure is going to look like. We're going to do some introductions, so you get to learn who I am and who this guy is. Those of you who didn't come to the part 2, I had a cardboard cutout of Julien at that one on stage with me because he couldn't make it. That's a really good story. If you want to hear a good story, getting through security at the airport with a giant poster of a man in a suit and a lot of questions. So introductions, and we're going to do a quick recap of part 1 and part 2 since none of you went to them, so we should probably bring you up to speed. We'll talk a bit about incentives, why we decided to do this upgrade. Then we'll cover the plan, how we planned to approach it. And then for number 5, Julian's really going to take over. He's going to walk you through what we actually did. It isn't a full upgrade, but it's a partial upgrade, and it was fun. You'll see. We'll do some next steps, and then whether or not this is the end, I guess we'll determine based on how you guys feel about how this session went. So, introductions. We use these pictures. If you're a South Park person, you know who these people are. Mostly because Julie and I have worked together for many years. We worked with a lot of American customers, and this is how they see Canadians. We're Canadians. So we use these pictures. I'm not blonde, and I've never been blonde, but he's darker, so he gets the dark hair guy. I'm Jardine. I'm a solution architect with Liferay, and you are?
I'm Julien. I'm the front-end consultant with Global Services. I'm the brains behind all of this, although he's the one who takes care of all the talking.
That's true. And he's not just a consultant, he's a super front-end guru. If you see his work, it's pretty impressive.
Not true.
Okay, so origin story. How did we meet? Because we live in different parts of Canada, and I'm much younger than he is, so it doesn't make
Sure, if you say so.
Well, my origin story is I found Liferay. I was working with a company, and they were an OEM partner. So they had their own software product, but they used Liferay as the portal to help their customers work with their product. And I actually didn't care about the company's product. I loved Liferay. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go work for myself, and I'm going to help people with Liferay. And then along that journey, I ended up working with a bunch of different customers, and eventually, right here, I end up with a company called Yellow Pages.
So my story or my history was much shorter than that. I started an internship with a medium-sized company. 3 years after that, I was interviewed at Yellow Pages. And my experience was pretty quick. We were introduced to Liferay. They were a client of Liferay's. And then we had Andrew as a subject matter expert. And I pretty much learned everything I needed to know at the beginning about Liferay. Then I eventually had to teach him everything he needs to know about Liferay.
That's true. But actually, at Yellow Pages, they had like 4 different projects working with Liferay and a whole pile of people who they'd hired who didn't want to work with Liferay. And so they never listened to me. No one wanted to hear anything I had to say. They never wanted to do any of the stuff that I asked them to do. Julien was the only guy in the whole company that seemed to care what I had to say. And he'd actually come to me and say, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. I'm doing it this way. Is this right? Because it feels like maybe it's not the right way." And I would show him. So for me, after working with all these people who were not so awesome and meeting Julien, I was like, this was my perspective of Julien. Like this is my Liferay soulmate, right? This is like my jam to my peanut butter.
Okay, let me clarify. He said that I cared to know. I didn't really care. I had to, so.
That's not true. He likes it. So anyway, this is my perspective on meeting Julien. I'm sure you had a similar perspective,
of course,
right?
Yes.
This was kind of like Julien's perspective was.
I mean, It was hectic having to deal with Andrew. I don't know if you've ever had to speak to him, but I still have nightmares since the first day we met.
I call him regularly.
I'm doing better than I did when I first met him, but yeah, it's been tough.
We've got some distance between us now because I moved pretty far away, so I think that's helped our relationship a fair bit.
Definitely.
But yeah, so anyway, along the way, I came to Julien and I said, we got to build something together on Liferay. We're like, what do you think? Should we do this? I've got this idea. We're going to make a pile of money. And he said, yeah, right?
I'm like, sure. I listened to his idea. He's like, I want to commit fully. I want to put all my eggs in that basket. We want to retire early. I'm like, sure. I heard retirement early, so I got excited about the idea. Mm-hmm. And I'm still not retired, and I'm still friends with this guy.
Okay, so since all of you, or most of you, except for maybe 3 hands, I think, maybe 4 hands, did not go to part 1 and part 2, we should probably tell you what this part 3 is all about. Okay, so let's do a quick recap. And since I did actually use this slide in part 2, but since none of you went to part 2, then you won't be familiar with it, so I can use it again. So last season on the journey of Liferay Developer, which was quite a while ago actually, part 1 was basically this top line plus this guy down here. And effectively what I did in that first talk was I talked about what it was for me to become a Liferay developer, how I found the product, how I learned the product, how I fell in love with it, how I became, at least in my opinion, a Liferay expert, and how I started this, my practice. At the time I was an independent consultant. And then the fall from grace was kind of when Liferay 7 came out, and OSGI and the huge reset that everyone had to go through to figure it out, right? The new hope was basically understanding how the OSGI portion of Liferay worked and discovering the beauty and falling in love again. Part 2 is these little hexagons down here. And that was really when Julien came into the equation and we built something called Mastering Liferay, okay? So Mastering Liferay, which we showcased in part 2, I've got a few screens here that we can walk through for those of you who are not familiar. I recently learned that people on my own team don't even know that I did this, which was awesome. It's not nearly as, by the way, we're not going to be retiring anytime soon from Mastering Liferay. But
we're going to retire that friendship, but yeah.
Probably. So what we did was we built a video-based training platform and we built it on top of Liferay, and then we recorded a bunch of content to teach people how to use Liferay. That was the idea. But we wanted to use as much of the product as we could out of the box. Of course, we built customizations because that's how you worked with the product in 7.1 or in older versions. But we tried to make sure that those customizations were really just taking existing features and bringing them together. So for example, our homepage, which should be familiar to anybody who's ever watched a video from a streaming service, has things like the new releases, continue watching, and it's built using the things you see here: web content, the asset framework, a search API. Of course, we had service builder because there were no objects at the time, that kind of stuff. And we did have customizations. We built the custom widgets that were used to render these things. So each one of these sections is its own widget that pulls data and massages it in some way, right? And then, of course, we had caching because we wanted to make sure that we had blazing performance for all the people who don't go to our site. Now, after you get in the front door, search was an important part because people are coming here to learn. They got to find the material they're looking for to understand how to use the product. Now, search in 7.1 was not nearly as flexible and awesome as it is in 7.4. So there was actually quite a bit of customization that we did for this feature. Right? We did use some out of the box for the basic stuff, like I think the tags facet and the search bar across the top. But most of what you see here was actually custom build. We had to build our own search results widget. We made heavy use of the search API, and actually to build this was quite a task. I built custom facets, everything, and a lot of this wasn't even documented. So it was basically reverse engineering everything that Liferay already had out of the box, and then figuring out how to extend that with my own custom stuff. This, like, you have a black belt in search by the time you finish getting through this. It was crazy. The last one I'm going to show you here is the video player, which is kind of the end of this experience. So you log in, you find what you're looking for, and then, of course, you consume the content. This was, again, a heavy custom solution. We did leverage a lot of the out-of-the-box features, but we had to wrap it in something that was custom to get it to work the way we wanted it to work. So we have a video player at the top. Unfortunately, you have to look at me in every video because I record myself every time. Someone told me to do that. I didn't actually do that at first, and then someone said to me, "Where are you? Why can't I see? I just hear you." So they told me to put my face in it. So I'm in all the videos if you end up watching any of this stuff. But this is using the classic kind of Liferay approach where we had a widget that we created to wrap all these features in place. So we have the journal API and services, we leverage the widget templates, but then use the API to produce the content rather than as a string, as a return, rather than trying to leverage a display page, all that kind of stuff. And there was a lot that went into this. I mean, some of the stuff that you're seeing here, I mean, to understand the stuff that Julien did to make it look like this, to make it work, it's highly dynamic. As you go through the video, the pane on the right-hand side there will actually change based on where you are in the video, what we're showing you. It's pretty wild. But there was a lot of customization. So for this one, we of course had custom widgets and then tons of OSGI services that we wrote. They were just wrapping up existing features, but doing it in a way that was easier for us to manage. So there's a pile more stuff. I'm not going to go through all the screens. You guys can check it out on your own time if you like. But we had login and registration. We had the coming soon videos, the ability to share ideas. You can upvote stuff. You can save to collections. It's a bunch of stuff. And in the end, to produce all of this took us about 123 days. I didn't actually keep a log, but I'm just estimating based on like my bank account continually going down.
Yeah, and my time. Yes.
And yours as well.
Grew hair, white hair. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. The hair falling out.
Yeah.
About 123 days of work. It was about 151 custom modules that we built, and it worked out to be about 367,000 lines of code. That does not include the templating code that we did for the widget templates and stuff like that, but it was a ton of work. And for those of you who don't know what a shish taouk is, it's a grilled chicken sandwich, which is absolutely delicious. Abu Elias is a place next to Julien's house, and I ate probably 10 times more than that. Those sandwiches every time I went to see him. So it was a lot to get through to build this tool. Now, season 3, or part 3, is where we start. And we start with another brilliant idea that I had, where I called Julien one day and I said, hey buddy, I think we should upgrade to the latest version of Liferay. I think we should be on 7.4 and take advantage of the features, then Julien said.
And then, I had flashback of all the nightmares I've had about Andrew and with all his crazy ideas. And I really just want to say, hey man, no, just please leave me alone. I'm just starting to feel better now. And somehow just that no came to, sure, why not?
I'm very convincing. Okay, so incentives though. Of course, I had to convince Julien and I had to share with him, like, why should we do this? Why should we upgrade? The product is working and there's no problems with it. As far as we know, there's no bugs being reported anyway. So why even bother with the upgrade? And incentives are very important. Come on, click. I want to tell you a story. Who knows what this car is?
Piece of crap.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. I was rehearsing. I'm like, I bet Dave says it's a piece of crap. Yes, it's my piece of crap. This is a 1989 Toyota MR2. It's a very old car, and I love this car. I've had this car for about 16 years. It is the most fun thing to drive. And for me, it like represents like just some amazing moments in my life. Just doing even the most mundane things in this car are fun. You get in it and you feel like you're one with this thing. It's so raw. You feel every bump. You smell all the fumes. Like I'm probably dying every time I drive it, right? And I live in Texas now, and I don't know if you guys ever see trucks in Texas, but like if I got hit by anything in this car, I would not be here to tell you any stories, okay? So I love this car, and I fell in love with this car when I was very young, and so when I had the opportunity to own this exact car that I fell in love with, I bought it. And of course, there are lots of pros to this. It's a one of a kind. I make a lot of friends. People are always talking to me about the car, and I haven't seen one of those for years, or what is that piece of crap? Right, Dave? And it gives you one of a kind experiences. So it's very unique, and I love it. But there are some downsides. It can be very costly to maintain. For example, I had to get the exhaust replaced on it recently. And to replace the exhaust, I first had to find someone who was willing to even work on the car. Because most people, I roll in, they say, that's a really cool car. No, I'm not working on it because it's too old. And they're worried that something else is going to break while they're trying to fix what's already broken. So I finally found a shop. They told me I had to wait 5 months. I had to get the parts myself. So I had to ship stuff from Japan, which was very expensive. I get the car in the shop. Anyway, long story short, it was about $3,000 for a very simple job, right? Very painful. Now, software, I think, can be kind of the same, right? I mean, I think we've all worked on software. If you haven't worked on software, you're probably at the wrong conference, by the way. But the idea is that I think we would love to all build new software, but most of us are probably maintaining somebody else's work, right? A lot of the time, that's what most of your career is. Very few of us are the original creators. And for software, you're basically just maintaining it, and sometimes that makes sense, right? Sometimes it makes sense to just keep something going because it's a minimal investment, but there is a huge investment even in maintaining software. So at some point in time, you have to look at this thing, and although you want to brag about what you built, and you want to keep showing it off, sometimes it just makes sense to upgrade to take advantage of the newest features. So that's kind of where we're at, right? We have all these ideas for what we want to build in Mastering Liferay, but then we look at the 7.1 version, how much more work it is for us to do, and because we're working every day with the latest version of Liferay, we understand that there are new capabilities that would make our life so much easier. And so for us, it's like, yeah, you know what? If we're going to keep going with this project, it makes sense that we move to a newer version because we can get more done in less time. Okay, this is supposed to be a full upgrade talk. Sorry, Brian, we were not able to finish the upgrade. So we're not quite done, but we have some stuff to show you. Okay? We had some ideas. So let's talk about the plan, how we plan to actually do this upgrade. Now, another quote for you. All you need is the plan, the roadmap, and the courage to press on to your destination. I think this last part is really the most important piece to take away from this quote, which I love, and it's true. Like, we really need to have the discipline and the courage and the strength to keep going. And Liferay upgrades can be hard, but they're not impossible. You can get them to happen sooner or later. It's just how much are you willing to invest, right? Okay, so we said, okay, let's do this upgrade. We were told if we do it, we can come to Devcon, so we're super excited. So we started with this idea. We're like, yes, we're going to upgrade to the latest. We're going to retire all our customizations, and we're going to build all the features that we'd ever built. And then about a week or so later, we're like, maybe we'll just upgrade to the latest and retire all our customizations. Then a couple weeks after that, we said, maybe we'll just upgrade to the latest and retire some of our customizations. And then eventually where we landed was, let's use the latest version to run some proof of concepts to make sure that this is a good idea and validate the direction and the plan. So that's kind of where we've landed for this particular talk. Now, we wanted to make sure that we had clear, measurable goals. And I would say, all joking aside, I like to have fun, but all joking aside, whenever you're going to do a Liferay upgrade, this is a really important step. And not just with the people that use the solution that you're upgrading, the people on the periphery that are affected as well, right? You want to make sure that all the people who are involved in this project are aligned so that everyone has an idea of what success looks like. So we wanted to maximize the low-code features. I didn't actually ask Julien, I just told him this is what we're doing, but normally you would ask, right?
That's what I have to go through every time I talk to this guy. Yes.
It's just efficient that way if I just tell you. So maximize the low-code features, retire a minimum of 50% of our customizations. That was our goal. Remember the 151 modules. Convert all the OSGI stuff that we can to client extensions if it's available. And then create a themeless solution, because part of what we wanted to do was actually OEM this platform to allow other people to create their own training portals with their own branding. So we wanted to move away from the idea of everything being locked into a theme. Click.
So we had to create a list of what we had originally built in 7.1 and see what is the ideal alternative and what are the features that are available in 7.4 and see what is the ideal solution to go with. So we looked at memberships. We figured we'll use commerce products. We looked at widget pages. Obviously, we turned into content pages. We retired the Mastering Liferay theme, and we turned it into a theme CSS/global CSS, and we had global JS client extensions. We had custom widgets. Those are normally, depending on how complex that is, you either go towards fragments or you go towards custom element client extensions. Service builder, objects. The good thing about objects, because it also creates the API for you and create objects. Alloy UI, we switched to using React. Search results, we just use the out-of-the-box search results widgets. And then all the custom facets, we just use the out-of-the-box custom facets templates. Additionally, custom error pages, we just use the Liferay utility pages, which is a huge success in Liferay that we currently have. We have the language override. Genesis is what we had internally, which is the equivalent of a site initializer. Andrew actually, we built that in-house, but now it's just available out of the box. We're just using the client extension for that. Stripe, we use the Stripe integration or configuration. And as a publisher, we switched into collection display fragments, and then search, we just use the out-of-the-box search. All right, we still have some unknowns. We didn't go through the entire project altogether. We still have unknowns in terms of the hooks that we wanted to do, the model listeners, the search contributors. So still something we're probably gonna have to talk to Liferay and see what's the alternative for these. But for now, those are unknown in our case.
Yeah, and actually these two were a big one, number 2, number 3, because we actually have a model listener so that every time you save, when I create content, I save the journal article, it turns it into a JSON object with a few fields that we use to render those tiles, and then we index it. And then everything that we do from a pull perspective is done with the search API, and we just pull that one field and then render. So it's super fast, and it's a single call to get everything. So for that, like we really struggled with, well, how are we gonna do this? Because we've switched over to objects, so we have that REST API, but the object that we get back doesn't have all the information that we need to render. It has a reference to the thing that we need to render. So one call turned into many, many, many calls. So for now, we haven't figured out how to do that quite right yet, right?
Yeah.
This one at the bottom, I don't even know if we have to worry about that anymore, but I don't even know why I did that, quite frankly. I think I just didn't know how to use adaptive media, so I just made something of my own, but anyway. Okay, so the upgrade. Our first attempt at the upgrade was probably the same as everyone's attempt at a Liferay upgrade the first time. So just like so frustrating. You release your inner toddler, you throw things, you know, use inappropriate language for the office. Fortunately, we work from home, so it's okay, you can get away with it. So anyway, number 1 did not work, it was a disaster. Attempt number 2, if Marco, Brian, Dave, Olaf, you guys have to put your fingers in your ear for this one, okay? I don't want you to hear this. Okay. The solution that's up there now is a 2-site solution. Why is it a 2-site solution? We had a marketing site that we use as the front door, and then we built a members portal. You don't need 2 sites. I just was in this stage of my Liferay career where I was so excited about the multi-site feature that I wanted to use it everywhere, and I was creating sites like they were free. The problem is in the upgrade, we want to go to 1 site, but the content is on, you know, 1 site, and then the public site is the default site. So post-upgrade, we ended up with this infinite loop, which I still haven't figured out whenever you try to get into the members portal. So feeling the pressure of Devcon and trying to get this done, I said, you know what, I just need the content from this site over here, and I'll just use the default site. Unfortunately, the exporter-importer wasn't working for me, and so I said, I wonder if I just like switch these 2 group IDs, if maybe, it worked. That's the best part. Honestly, it worked. So I switched the 2 IDs. All my content was magically there, and I was able to log in. I was like, this is amazing. If anybody who gives me an argument for foreign keys from now on, I'm going to tell them this story. I'm going to say, no, keep your foreign keys. I want my relations like this. Yeah. So, but probably we shouldn't be doing that, and I probably shouldn't be advocating for people to do that. But anyway, it worked. This is like, I know. This is the best Giphy I think I've found in months, this face. Anyway, okay, so then we decided, you know what, maybe if we're going to talk about the upgrade, we should do it properly rather than tell people to do things the wrong way, right, Jules?
Yeah, so we went page by page. So we started with the main page or the landing page of the site. So this part was quite easy to do. We just started with a blank page. We added some background images. We added the out-of-the-box fragments. So you had a heading, paragraph, button. You add an image. You change on your different viewports, which one do you want to have first, which one do you want to have last. We had some custom fragments, like, for example, in the image inside the laptop, this was an image viewer. So we had a custom fragment that would loop through the images. But the rest was pretty much standard and out of the box. And that was the only probably custom code, which is a fragment, but the rest was just out of the box.
Yeah, so no custom code is in, like no OSGI or anything
yes,
like that,
no,
right?
nothing. No backend, no web content template, no web content structure. It was just a content page and a bunch of fragments.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this next one, we had the sign-in page. At the time when I was building that page, we were still on Q2 release. So the login utility page was not available yet. It was released in Q3, I believe.
Yeah, beta though.
That was in beta. So created just a regular content page. Did the visual with just fragments and image, title, and then eventually we just used the out-of-the-box login portlet. Eventually, we're probably going to use like the configuration with OpenID so that we can have alternative solutions for the login. But the one that we had was just straight out-of-the-box login portlet. So next up is the dashboard page, which is basically the original idea. So as we had said earlier, we had like a custom portlet for each section. So we had to kind of find a way and have to make it more generic. So first of all, created a master page for this page. We had the header as a fragment, the navigation as a separate fragment, and then every content in there will be specific to whatever page we create. So first we created, you had the heading, or we call it on our site a headline, where you see new releases and the icon. So that was just text where you can change the text regarding which section you want. You can even change the icon. So you just drag and drop that fragment onto the page. And for the carousel, we just created a custom element. So the original idea what we had was like, okay, well, this is quite easy to do. We'll just use a content fragment contributor or a content display fragment. We'll create a content fragment contributor. And then we'll configure it as to which videos to show. However, there was a downside where the front-end content fragment contributor did not filter based on user. So we couldn't specify like for this user to do this or what type of custom videos we wanted to show for that particular thing. So since that approach didn't work, we said, okay, maybe we'll use a fragment and we use the item selector to display the content. However, the fragment approach didn't work as well because the fragment didn't provide all the information we need regarding the journal article. So we need to do another call to get the journal article data, so on and so forth. And you could have like, I don't know, like 50 journal articles. So eventually, what we came up with a solution is we'll create a carousel, generic carousel custom element, and we'll just configure endpoints. So for continue watching, we'll have the endpoint, call this endpoint to get the data. For new releases, you call another endpoint to get the data, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and this is all using the endpoint being the headless, because we switched from service builder to objects. So things like, for example, the continue watching, and you can't see it, but there's a watch again section. That's just your video history and whether or not you've finished watching the video. Right, so we have the API that's generated for us through the headless solution, and all we have to do is take advantage of it.
So for this page, it was the FAQ page. Actually, this is the first page that I had started with because it seemed like the easiest one to start with. So I had the headline fragment, and then I used a collection for each individual. So a collection that is configured to use FAQ types. We had a custom structure for FAQs. It was configured to use FAQs, filtered by the latest date. You could filter it by title or whatnot. I created a custom fragment for the panel, for the heading and the description, and everything is just mapped. I was probably done with this in like 2 hours, and when I first finished it, I'm like, okay, this is easy, and we're gonna finish upgrading, mastering Liferay in like 4 days, and then we'll find out what happens later.
Yeah.
So for the utility pages, this was pretty much easy to do. You had the out-of-the-box utility pages for 404 and 500. So you could create your own. You could just override whatever's available out of the box. We started with for the 404, changed the text. Eventually, I just copied over to the 505 and changed the background image and changed the text. And that was probably took me like an hour. Yeah, that was easy to do.
And so the original solution, we had these funny error pages, but to build it in 7.1 was a nightmare. I mean, it was a JSP fragment, and then you got to find the right JSP. Then we had all this gross JSP scriptlet code for the different conditions, and including other JSP files, then trying to find the image somewhere else. I mean, it took us like days to do this. I insisted because I wanted funny error pages. But it was a nightmare by comparison to what we were able to do in like, less than an hour, right?
Yep. All right, so this one is probably the most complex feature that I had to do. I'm still kind of proud of in doing, because it was all built in Allo UI. You had a custom video fragment. There was a lot of things happening. It was a combination of asset publisher, it was with web content template, it had a Allo UI custom component, it had connection to Vimeo API, it had an inline text editor. I mean, it was quite complicated. It was quite the beast.
Yeah.
So looking at it from a 7.4 perspective, so originally the first step we had to do, we created a display page template for all type lessons. The right-hand side, which is the pane on the side, this is not quite done yet. We still have a few ideas of what we need to do, but it hasn't been implemented. The left-hand side, it was quite easy. There were some challenging parts, but we were able to overcome it. So the top part was the video. So right now, this is a web content template that points to the video URL, and it's just embedded based on the URL. The section below is just regular fragments. Some of them are like headings, paragraphs. They are mapped to the web content structure. Some elements required a bit more visual changes, because some of the data you get back, like you don't really have necessarily custom functionality to it. Like we had, for example, the versions that are associated with the video, we wanted to go back to the search page to filter based on, let's say, 6.2 or 7.1. You had tags, you had filters. So we ended up using a web content template, and we mapped to that web content template, and we get the results that we have. Like compared to what we originally had in 7.1, the left-hand side probably took me maybe 2.5 hours just to get the web content templates. It was quite fast to do.
Yeah. I think the original solution, I remember making a trip to Montreal, and I would stay with Julien for like 3 to 5 days. Sorry.
I know. Nightmares.
Well, it was one whole trip just to build this piece. It was a ton of work.
So, search. Yes, so as Andrew mentioned earlier, this one was like a whole custom thing that we built. Originally, so eventually we switched to, like, we used the headline fragment, we changed the text, we changed the icon, we used the out-of-the-box search results, which is templates, and everything on the side here is out-of-the-box category facet. We just created custom templates to display the data that we get back from the search results.
Yeah, and we have a blueprint that we're using to filter out content, and we plan to extend the blueprint to make it personalized content based on different configurations that you can set in your profile and what your membership tier is, because we did originally think that we were going to retire on this. You can use it for free if you want, but there's a paid membership level, and then different features have to be locked and unlocked based on your membership. So blueprints are a great way to handle some of that. All right.
Yeah, so we still have there are still things that still need to be done. However, we had some things that we didn't have the chance to show you. So we had created the objects for the lessons. We had created an instance setting client extension. We had a theme CSS client extension because we got rid of the original mastering Liferay theme. We created a theme CSS client extension, and then I also created a site initializer client extension so that Andrew and I, since we're always working remotely, we both have kind of the same environment running at the same time.
Yeah. And then on top of that, we didn't show it, but the segmentation experiences, similar to what I just said with the blueprints, we have a whole chunk in our repository from the 7.1 solution that was dedicated just to the membership level and handling all the rules around what you can and can't do in the different tiers. With the segmentation experiences through Page Builder, we don't need any of that. Like, we just literally just highlight, delete, because I can just create a new experience and I can change what's available to the user who's in that tier. For the actual memberships, we treat them as products now. So we said earlier we can use Stripe that Liferay provides for us to integrate with. So we don't have to have any of that custom code. That's all gone. And then the commerce itself to manage the products and display pages for showing them, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So do you want to show something?
Let's see. Come, it's your laptop.
I think I left it open.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
So this one here. Do you have internet? Yeah.
Yeah, you should be connected to my phone, I think.
Oh yeah, it's localhost, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was the landing page that we had created. So all of those that you see here are just fragments Some of them are configured, some of them just standard. We go into the sign-in page. So this is the out-of-the-box login portlet. Everything's around the form is just also part of the fragment. Is it test?
Test password. Mine's super secure. I don't use 1, 2, 3, 4th.
Great. All right. So we had these sections we had articulated. So this part here is a headline. This is a custom element carousel that is configured based on whatever endpoint that you show. And that custom element is used across, is the same one across every section that you see here.
And we had some gaps too, right? So you'll see here our menu icons aren't showing. In the original solution, we had a custom field for the page object where you could specify the CSS class for the icon. But in the site initializer, there's no way that we could find that you could associate a page with a custom field value. And so we weren't able to actually set these icons automatically. So you have to go in and do that afterwards. So we have like this list of things that we're like, that's a gap, that's a gap. We'll be talking, Brian.
Yeah. I mean, we still haven't figured out a way, or what's the property that we need to add in the site initializer as to how to override a custom field value. Yeah. So what else do we have here? Where's my mouse? So I think it was this. So this FAQ, if we go into edit mode, are we seeing here? So as you can see here, we're using the collection display fragment, and then we're using the panel fragment, and they're mapped to the title of the web content and the description of the web content. Is there anything else?
Maybe use the player page or search results in player page or something.
Do you have?
Which one worked? I can't remember which one it was. Was it the last one?
This?
No.
No?
Error page works.
Oh, maybe this. No. Error. Yeah, so 404 error page works. No.
Here, do a search for auto. That one should work, I think.
Yeah. So this one is an iframe. This is mapped to a title. This one is a web content template that takes the create date, and then we calculate based on how long ago that date was, the level of difficulty of the lesson, and then the duration. We had a field that specified like it was just 455 seconds, but then created a custom macro where it displayed calculate based on minutes and seconds. Description, the versions, like when you click on, let's say 7.3, it does a search with a query or version filter by 7.3. This one is available out of the box for asset categories. However, this data is not available when you create a web content template, so something else to talk about with the product team, see how we can manage to change that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wait, can you switch back to the deck?
Yep.
All right. I think we're almost out of time, so we better. Okay, so after going through this process, how did we net out compared to how we did the first time? So we started with 123 days of work in the initial build that we did. What you just saw was about 5 days worth of work, max. I wouldn't even say those were 5 full days, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's not done. So the 123 was the full done product, but even the pieces that we've shown you, that was probably, 20, 30 days from the original. The 151 custom modules, we haven't retired all of them yet, but if we use a projection based on how we're going right now and what we plan to do from the feature set perspective, we think that if we were to keep going, we'd be down to about 23. And those 23 are the ones that we can't really get rid of right now because we need the OSGI services, we need the search contributor, that kind of stuff. The 367,000 lines of code, again, projecting, we think we're going to be down to somewhere around 21,000 when we're finished. So it's a significant difference. We shed, 90% of what we wrote. kind of makes me feel sad that we spent so much time writing all that. We should have just waited for 7.4. Unfortunately, I have not been to Montreal in a very long time, so there were no shish taogs eaten for this particular upgrade. I'm going to change that soon, though. I'm coming, buddy. Okay, and again, we're not even done, right? So that's just what we've showed you so far. We know that there's so much more that we're going to do, right? We're going to do it, right, Jules?
I don't know. I don't want to say anything in front. I don't make promises.
Right. Okay, so in terms of next steps, where do we go from here? We feel like we've done the proof of concept, and that it's worthwhile to do the upgrade to the latest version of Liferay. So we made our to-do list of things that we got to tackle. This is actually running in Liferay Pass, and we have probably the oldest workspace version in Pass of all the people in Pass. I have the cloud team constantly sending me Slack messages asking me when I'm going to upgrade. Soon, guys. That's why I keep saying soon. We had to look at Elasticsearch because we're on a very old version of Elasticsearch as well. The video player tool support, that's a complicated piece. That player page is a lot of work, and the dynamic nature of how those panels update while the video is playing is something that we really have to kind of noodle through. We got to finish upgrading the other features, but most of what we showed you is like a rinse and repeat for the other parts of the site. So we feel like we've tackled enough components that are used to build the site that we should be okay. We have to do a data migration. We're not going to switch group IDs. We're going to do something real, I promise. We're going to have to integrate with commerce. Jeff, wherever you are, need your help with that, buddy. And then finally get to adding the new features. But most importantly, which is why it's in bold, is the last bullet, and that is we're keeping a log of our experience so that we can share that feedback with product. And I would say anybody else who's doing upgrades, you should do the same thing, right? Because sometimes you need that real world experience to identify where the small gaps are. So is this the end? Is part 3 the final version, or will you guys come to see a part 4? That's, I guess, the question. I have to come up with a better title because Bernard poo-pooed the title of this presentation when I gave it to him. So if I get a better title, maybe we'll have a part 4. But I guess that'll depend on whether or not we finish this upgrade. And I really feel like we should finish the upgrade so that we can continue to serve the community and serve everybody who wants to learn Liferay and show them the power and the beauty of this tool and what it can do. For now, I think that's basically it, right, buddy?
Yes, sir.
Right. Thanks, guys.